Hello, everybody. This is artomanouk again with you. I will do this interview in English. My guest is from California, Los Angeles. His name is Aris Govjian. He is joining us from Los Angeles or South California. He is a young person. He is a writer. He writes articles. He's an entrepreneur, a businessman, and he's joining me to have an interesting chat with him about certain topics which are of great importance for Armenians and for Armenia. I welcome Aris Govjian. Aris, thank you for the invite, your acceptance, and thank you joining our audience. So, Aris, I introduced you briefly. I read your articles in the Armenian English papers, amongst them the Armenian Mirror Spectator, in which I read two interesting articles that you had a fantastic new approach to what we can do and so on. So can you elaborate on a few of these articles that you wrote and they were published, and I was really impressed by the content of these articles. So Aris, welcome, and you can elaborate on that.
Thank you. First, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to speak with you. Yeah, the first article you reached out to me about was really covering how the United States, like how we, Armenians in the diaspora, can stop military aid and supplies from going to Azerbaijan. And because different governments find a lot of ways to get resources there. And the Armenian lobby, whether it's in the US or abroad, I know you're in Canada, typically doesn't have the same amount of resources as the Turkish lobby or the Azeri lobby. And so I was looking for ways, how can we cut military aid? And there are a lot of laws in these countries that allow us to really stop military aid going to Azerbaijan because of their attacking of a friendly nation to America, or it could be to Canada or any other country. So in the US, there's a law where if military aid goes to a country that attacks another one that's a friendly nation to the US, you can punish the people who sent that military aid, and you can try to recover the money. So the people funneling money and aid, lobbying for it, even supplying the weapons could be held accountable through this law. So it's in the US Code of Crimes and Criminal Procedure, and that's Title 18, Section 962. So you can find it online, it's public information, but so I think my approach in helping the Armenian cause is, of course, donating to different charities, but also looking for ways that we can be strategic, where we may not have the amount of resources to lobby governments to send aid or not to send weapons to Azerbaijan, but we can use the law and we can use the truth, because a lot of these politicians and lobbyists who are trying to get weapons to Turkey and Azerbaijan, they're going against the law effectively. And so we should use that to the maximum ability that we can to prevent it.
Eventually, Turkey, who helped the Azeris, is a NATO ally, and he gave NATO arms to the Azeris, and they used against the Armenians. And I open another parenthesis, the Bayraktar, their famous drones, which destroyed and caused lots of harm, have more than a dozen items, strategic elements in it, supplied by the US.
Yeah. Oh, the way that a lot of these companies respond to that, they say that some of these supplies were purchased by a third party who gave it to Turkey. So sometimes it could be hard to hold some of them accountable. Some of them may not have directly sold it knowingly to Turkey, but it's interesting you mentioned NATO, because during the war, NATO was posting on their own social media. I think they posted a picture of the Turkish flag and basically celebrating Turkey while that war was going on. So even though these countries have laws against sending weapons to attack peaceful countries, they have laws against terrorism, which Azerbaijan and Turkey have both used terrorists from Syria and other parts of the world. But these governments know what they're doing. Their military industrial complex knows it's wrong, but they're kind of flaunting it, even in NATO, with their social media posts during the war. It was very bizarre. So since it's almost like there's a machine built to aid Turkey and Azerbaijan because of a geopolitical feud with Russia. So the best way that I could see Armenians to combat Armenia getting dragged into the crosshair is to research all the laws that we can apply and use it as teeth in our activism. So a lot of people may just protest things going on, but protesting is good, but it's not enough. We also have to, which a lot of Armenians are doing, they're sending aid, supplies, they're building businesses in Armenia. The Armenian lobby is working hard in a lot of different countries, but I think we can hold a fire to these politicians who approve this money, and that's through the law and the truth, because they are violating the law. And so I don't know if I answered your question exactly.
Yes, then let me, can you elaborate on the, who can we sue? Let's say not you and me, but our lawyers, our Armenian lawyers, legal firms. Who can they sue? The supplier or the Turkey and Azerbaijan themselves?
They can sue a lot of different parties. So I'm not an expert on the law. I'm not a lawyer, nor am I an expert in the codes that allow for this recoupment. But it does exist, and they can go after, I believe I listed in the article, from the politicians approving it to the lobbyists to the suppliers as well. It depends on how big their involvement is, and if they can, how much they can prove that, hey, this is going to a country that's attacking a friendly nation, and they're knowingly sending it to that country with those concerns. Because Azerbaijan, there's a lot of proof that they've been putting out propaganda and rhetoric even before the war to cause violence against Armenians. So any politician or group before the war sending military aid to Azerbaijan knew that that country is a threat to a peaceful nation, even before the war. So there's a lot of evidence to prove that. And so some people might say, oh, we didn't know that they were going to attack Armenia with this aid, and they could try to avoid the legal consequences. But the fact remains that their president would say that they want to essentially ethnically cleanse Armenians from the world. And Aliyev has said said in the past that the Armenians of the world are our enemy. So for the U.S. to give over $100 million before the war, that money we should go after that money. and we should hold politicians accountable and use the laws as fire. Because you can, unless people are, their position is under threat or they can face legal consequences for what they did, they're not going to change, especially when they have a financial incentive from our opposition.
So I'm wondering if our Canadian Armenian lawyers can do something, or they should be American lawyers in that case. I know you are not an expert, but I'm calling our lawyers to dig the facts and see if there are opportunities, because the informer has big rewards. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes. Then if someone's pursuing getting the money back or the resources, they can get up to 50% of what's recovered. So the first part of what you asked was whether this is applicable to Canada. These laws are specifically US, but a lot of Western countries have similar laws. So I wouldn't be surprised if something similar existed in Canada. It might not be the exact thing, but it exists in a lot of different countries. And yeah, so if Armenians present a case to get money recovered, and as I mentioned, the US had sent over 120 million to Azerbaijan. If we can get that recovered, then the legal team could get 50% of that, theoretically. Yeah. So I don't think there has been a legal group really pursuing this or this particular law in some time. There are a series of laws in a lot of countries called quitam, which is a Latin term, which refers to recovering money that was used inappropriately, and you're recovering it on the behalf of the government. So you're letting the government know something was done wrong with their money. In this case, the government gave money and resources, and that was used inappropriately. So we sue to get that recovered. And so,
well, giving the money is a fact. We know that. Now, proving that knowingly they used that assistance, military assistance, they can argue that they also gave something to Armenia in that sense.
But Armenia doesn't attack a friendly nation. So the one starting the wars is Azerbaijan. And but that's where the whole media bias comes in. They have a machine to alter the media. But before we go into that
Aris, I know that we at least somehow got put an end of exports from the States and Canada, because Canada was supplying also optical instruments for the Bayraktar drones, and that has been stopped. Now we are not sure if there are third parties who can feed the same stuff to Turkey.
There can be, or they might get it through maybe third or fourth party channels. So for instance, Turkey was buying GPS systems using GPS systems from an American company, but they could have bought it from someone else who bought it from the company. So they try to get it in a roundabout way. So that's why we have to just do our due diligence. And
you had something to say?
Yes, I did, because in addition to laws recovering resources sent to Azerbaijan, there's also the Patriot Act in the US. And I'm sure a lot of other countries have anti-terrorism laws. And so another avenue of recovering money and funds that went to Azerbaijan is through the use of the Patriot Act, because they essentially were allied with terrorists from Syria, Libya, and other countries that they flew in to fight against Armenia. And they provided them with resources. So essentially Azerbaijan would have triggered our Patriot Act laws and everyone who tries to get money to Azerbaijan because they are working directly with terrorists.
Yes.
And that's documented, it's proven. It's not something that really is in question. So the fact that they have an agenda to ethnically cleanse Armenians, they have attacked Armenia, that is enough, and that would be the precedent to not send aid to Azerbaijan for the first law. And the fact that they're working with terrorists now would trigger the Patriot Act. So these are the things that I'm sure a lot of groups would like to brush under the rug to make the public not notice or pay attention. But we as Armenians, in order to make an effective response, we don't have the money to lobby like our opposition, but we can use these laws.
Yeah.
Yeah, and hold these laws could be like a sword that you hold your politicians and governments accountable. Because how are they going to spin the truth? Like when it's around these laws about not funding terrorism and attacking friendly nations. So the evidence is there, regardless of what the media war is like. In a courtroom, you present your evidence. And so that's another law that at least the American Armenians can use. I'm sure there are anti-terrorism laws in Canada, Europe, and other countries that do business with Azerbaijan. So we can, anytime, so another thing, even if, let's say we can't use these laws right now, let's say it doesn't work, but we can still use it as a threat towards the politicians and people who want to work with Azerbaijan. So even if we
be more
present,
careful. They'll be careful.
They'll think twice or 3 times or 4 times before they decide to make a deal with Azerbaijan. If they know that there's a legal team wanting to put anyone who supports terrorism and ethnic cleansing in jail. So if a politician thinks, okay, I might face jail time or I might lose money because I'm gonna sign this law that's in favor of Azerbaijan, okay, then they might not do it. Because if you work with Armenians, great, we'll help you get reelected in the country. If you want to ethnically cleanse Armenians by helping Azerbaijan, okay, we'll use the law to put you in prison. That's what we need to do. And having that, the carrot and the stick, and I think that's the best approach. You have to have some fire, otherwise you can ask a politician to do anything, but they're not really going to do it unless they're dependent or they have a very good reason to listen to you. So
I'm so proud that a young Armenian like you has come with a new approach. I follow the news a lot, and I've never seen such an approach. Maybe our legal teams, Armenian lawyers, knew about it, but I think let's make this a call to them that they can act and they should act, at least, even if they are not successful, as you said, to make them aware that they can be jailed or, scare tactic.
Yeah, exactly. And some lawyers may know about it, others may not. But when you're a lawyer, typically they go into different specialties. So we may have a lot of Armenian lawyers, but perhaps the area that this covers might not be their specialty. So it's something we need to develop and I think have a little bit more courage, because a lot of Armenians, they might feel like, oh, it's not going to work. Oh, we're just a small group, but you have to have more courage and a little bit more aggression, actually.
But the carrot is so attractive that non-Armenians might be helpful as well. The reward is so generous that
and Armenians could hire a law firm that specializes in this area too, so it doesn't have to be only Armenian lawyers. So there are legal teams that go after government misuse of money, especially in healthcare or other areas. So um, military aid is another realm of that. Um, so
Yeah, Aris,
yeah.
let's go to the other article where you were touching Amnesty International and their cover-up,
Yeah,
human rights cover-up with the Artsakh war.
yeah, Azerbaijan has deep pockets, and we definitely saw that in the war with a lot of the media. And in this case, it was human rights groups and organizations that present themselves like they are looking after oppressed groups. And both Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, they put a lot of content out that was essentially what Azerbaijan's propaganda was during the war. And in some cases, they would say that Armenia did things that never occurred, and they wouldn't really investigate, is what the Azeri government telling them the truth? And so you can't let misinformation go without a response. That's what I believe. And so you gotta have something written to combat that. If Amnesty International, which is a respected nonprofit organization, and Human Rights Watch, if they're putting out content that is making the aggressor look like the victim, that is doing a disservice to humanity. It's not just Armenians. And so we have to call out any media bias and not feel awkward about it, not be afraid to say, hey, this is corruption, this is distorting the truth, and to highlight it. So in the article that I wrote, I addressed many of their posts that were manipulating the truth. And so it's just something that I felt like needed to be said and documented, because we can't let organizations get away with this type of corrupt activity. Even if we're not successful in changing what they're doing at the moment, having a public documentation of their corruption, basically, or how they're doing something wrong is important. Because it makes people, and again, it makes people think twice if they know a group is going to be vocal and something is going to be public. There was a university in England, for example, that wasn't inviting Armenian professors for Caucasian archaeological and history conference, essentially, but they would invite Azeris and Georgians, and I believe Turkey too. So, but they end up canceling that event because of pressure, I think. They might say something else, but so we always have to put pressure when something's not right and publicly document it so they don't do it again.
Yeah,
And,
I know that during the war and afterwards, all these news media institutions or human rights protectors, they always accused using banned arms, for example, or destroying monuments and so on. But the blame was always given to both sides, whereas Armenia has not done such atrocities. And the blame was, you should stop doing this. You know, like treating the POWs.
yeah.
It's flagrant, and it was evident that there was a bias, as you say.
Exactly. And Armenians weren't the ones posting videos of humans being tortured. The Azeri soldiers would torture people, mutilate them, and the media was silent about it. So we have to call that out and publish our own articles about it. And people might say, "Oh, what's writing about it going to do?" Well, if there's public record about how this organization misrepresented the truth or manipulated things, uh, it might prevent other people from it. Again, think twice about it.
Yes.
If you know that someone's going to notice when you take blood money, then other people might think twice. So when, for example, a lot of social media influencers or people who, celebrities essentially, or minor influential people, when they do something that's really obviously for money, people call them out on it, and then in the future, other ones might not do the same mistake. So kind of borrowing the same strategy of what to do towards the politicians, we should do to nonprofit organizations that are in the space of human rights that aren't telling the truth. And so it's kind of the same strategy, but a little different approach.
So you have different approaches, Aris, that at least can be a warning for future such behavior. I really appreciate what you're doing, a young Armenian sitting at home and doing something great, and that's what we need. That's where the diaspora comes in. Now, what can the diaspora do, Aris? According to you, as a young man, Armenian man, child of Bolsahais, I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Abris Kezi, Abris Shnoragalen. So what can the diaspora do?
There's a lot that we can do, and there's a lot that the diaspora is already doing. And so I think a lot of people feel like we haven't done enough, and that's true, but we are doing a lot. And there are a lot of Armenians doing a lot of good. But there are different areas. Some would be good to pursue the legal matters that we discussed today. Others that are building businesses in Armenia, which solves another important problem, keeping Armenia a viable, healthy country. And speaking of health, there are a lot of Armenians that are giving their time to do healthcare trips to Armenia. But the average diaspora Armenian, I think the number one thing is to be more productive as a person, as a first step. Because there are a lot of Armenians that aren't using their full gifts in this life in general. A lot of people in the world, but I know our Armenians are able to do a lot of special things. So there are a lot that aren't really using their full potential. I think
that's a great message, Aris. That's a great message. So be good citizens and successful.
That's the starting point. Yeah.
But you should have some Armenianness in your heart.
Definitely.
Otherwise.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we can go into that in a moment, but what I mean, being productive, able to save money, invest some in Armenia, be able to meet with your politicians, your local congressman or representative. So I'm just one Armenian in my area. I don't actually live around a lot of Armenians, but I go meet with my congressman. I donate to Armenian causes. So I'm not a super activist. I don't consider myself an activist, but I'm active in my own life, in my own way, as much as I can be. And so if I'm doing work, let's say some work is stressful, I think, well, some of what I'm doing, I could donate to Armenia, Armenian causes, I can do more. You don't have to always be at the front line of a war to be doing something for Armenia. And in this war, a lot of Armenians volunteered, including myself. I contacted the local Armenian diaspora government organization, and they said our number one need is resources. Because you can have more soldiers, but if you don't have the resources to supply them, to feed them, transport them all, provide healthcare, or advanced weapons, you're just throwing bodies at something. So we have to maximize our own potential. And no matter where we are in life, in terms of money or not, to do something for Armenia, whether that's calling our politicians, even messaging them on Twitter. So in one situation, the U.S. aid, which is an American
Yeah.
branch of the government, they were refusing to give aid to Armenian landmine removal that was in areas where Armenians were needing to remove so that they can live their daily life. And I would follow up with the bureaucrats in charge, and I would comment on their social media. And I mean, the Armenian lobby did get more meetings with them. I don't know if it's because of people putting pressure who aren't there, but do everything you can do. And if you can't there's a saying where if you can't give 10 cents out of a dollar, you'll never give $1 million out of 100 million. So even giving a little bit to Armenian causes is important, and continuing that as we grow as a community. So
I agree with you. Giving is something good. We have done that for the past 30 years. I think nowadays the trend is more giving money, investing that you mentioned also. Investing will teach them how to fish and will create jobs, and why not some return for the investor, because bad investments are not good anywhere. So you need good investments which generate income to the investor, and that creates job and prosperity to Armenia. So that leads to me, how should we preserve the diaspora, and what do we expect? How can we engage the diasporans? Because eventually there is, we're losing our identity, and there is a Tulum, how you say, we are losing our identity. And whereas the Turks say the Armenians don't have oil, but they have the diaspora, that diaspora, we have to really make it work. And how do you see if Armenia should integrate the diasporan power into some kind of form in the government, or so? Can you elaborate on that?
I think you kind of touched on 2 points. One, how can we preserve the diaspora? And two, how do we integrate them? Kind of both of those, right?
Yeah.
I think, well, being Armenian with my parents from Turkey, I know the way they preserved their identity and held on to who they are, and especially my father, is sharing stories. So, I mean, everything about our culture is important, the language, the art, everything. But stories kind of relate the person to their identity and culture. Because an Armenian could live anywhere in the world. Maybe they don't speak Armenian. Maybe they don't know the names of any Armenian dish or food. They've never seen Armenian architecture, but they know their story, that they are Armenian. So sharing your story with your children, grandchildren, descendants helps preserve their identity, sharing Armenian stories. So I think people underestimate the value of that. So that's to preserve the diaspora, keep the stories of our people alive, and engaging them to be more integrated in Armenia. I think there are a lot of good groups doing that now, such as Birthright Armenia is a group doing a lot of good stuff. I believe there's a program to help skilled Armenian diasporans to work in aspects of Armenia's government right now. I think that's growing.
Yeah, there are few such groups working actively to have some ideological or physical influence on the government's policies and yes.
I think what we can do as a general diaspora too is find ways to make Armenia relevant in uh, other, basically get more stakeholders in Armenia. For example, if let's say an American company or Canadian company or French company does business in Armenia, they have an interest in Armenia's well-being because they have money invested there too. So I think as a diaspora, one, be more productive ourselves, but find creative ways that we can get other people invested in Armenia. And it doesn't have to be them putting money in. It doesn't have to be exactly like that. It could be they do some other aspect of business or activity.
Well,
Just to
the point that you mentioned, Aris, that if we have foreign investors, they have an interest in keeping security to that country.
yeah,
And that is the scenario which occurred with the British petroleum pipeline in Azerbaijan.
yeah,
That pipeline could have been blasted in 5 minutes, but nobody touched it because it was a red line, probably, to not touch that pipeline. So what you're saying is the reality.
yeah, definitely. I mean, that's why a lot of oil companies, I think it was around 2000, I forget if it was 2004, but early 2000s, there was a genocide resolution in the US government that was going to be voted on. Obviously, now it has passed,
Yes,
but a lot of oil companies and military defense companies lobbied for Turkey because
yeah,
they did business with Turkey. So they have no stake in whether or not a genocide is recognized, but because they do business there, they took action. So if the diaspora gets more people in having a vested interest in Armenia's safety and economic growth, then we can preserve and grow Armenia, I think. And I think we shouldn't be too picky about, um, what who is an Armenian or if they're Armenian enough or anything like that. Because in the Armenian community, I notice a lot of people are divided sometimes. Oh, you're
yes,
an Armenian from this country or that country, or you speak it or don't. But honestly, I think if people are working to save Armenia, grow Armenia, keep Armenia healthy, and grow our culture, I think that's a beautiful thing. And we should build more bridges and work with more people too.
yeah.
So
Uh, just a question. Have you been to Armenia?
no, maybe one day I'd like to go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I admire somebody who hasn't seen the country and so much devotion to such Armenian causes. I will be elated if you go to Armenia and you see yourself, and you will fall in love.
I
I
hope
have
so.
close friends from Canada who are moving there. I have done such interviews. If you have watched, young people moved and they are having kids over there. And I'll let you have a last word if you have other things to say or summarize.
I think just a summary, we need to use the laws to our advantage. Number one, we need to be productive as a people, which a lot of us are, but we have to help some of us who aren't as productive. We have to get other people to have a vested interest in Armenia and have courage, a little bit more fire, which a lot of Armenians have, but even if you believe you know the outcome, even if you think it's not going to work out, good people should do the best they can. They should still do whatever they can. So, even if a situation feels hopeless or looks hopeless, in a whether it's when you're trying to convince a politician or not. If you're a good person, you're going to do your best. There's no other choice. You know, we have to do our best for Armenia. So,
Well, I was honored, Aris, having this chat with you.
well, thank you.
You're a real patriot, and you should have proud parents. So I
Thank
say
you.
hello to them. I thank you for this interview, and I wish you the best, and stay online and protect our rights.
Thank you. God bless you. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you, Aris.